one of the reasons children want to grow up fast is so that other people will listen to us. One day I was having a meeting at a library and I was asking people to be quiet, but nobody really cared. And then when my mother said it, then everybody cared.
As a woman, I have faced the exact same thing in corporate settings, where when I have presented an idea, I didn't feel I was acknowledged or anybody cared. But exact same idea is then presented by a man, and that gets attention and bravo.
It feels like there's this hierarchy where men are first, women are second, and children are at the bottom.
Like gender, age is one of the ways in which people experience prejudice and discrimination that violates their dignity. This can be ageism, which is discrimination against older people, or, and this is what we're going to talk about in our session, adultism, which is discrimination against young people. And we would like to invite you to think about the ways in which you have been a victim of adultism and the ways in which you might be a perpetrator of it today.
We think this is important not only because children also deserve dignity, but because all of us would like to live in a world where our rights and dignity are respected. Is it fair to expect people to respect dignity of others if they themselves did not have the experience of being treated with dignity in their childhood? How do they know what it feels like or looks like?
I don't like when people say good boy to me because they only say that when we please them for what they wanted done. And if we do something from our true heart, they won't say good boy for that.
When children disagree with parents, sometimes they end up being told, look, I'm your father, end of story, you have to do what I say. Now, even among adults, this is not very nice. Like if a boss tells an employee that you have to do exactly these things, but at least in principle, the employee could choose to go and work for somebody else. Children cannot really choose to have somebody else as their parents. So there is really no consent in that power dynamic where they are obliged to obey because of that relationship. Where is the dignity in that?
One day I was at swimming class and my other friend was also there. And when my other friend could swim better than me, then the coach was like comparing him to me by like saying, he can do this, you can't do this, you should learn, he's better, something like that. And I didn't like being compared like that.
Corporal punishment is an easy example, and I'll return to this towards the end of the video. But for now, I just want to point out that if I hit an employee, it would be assault. If I hit my wife, it would be domestic violence. But if I hit my child, then it's discipline.
Not just through the schools. In the schools, often the habit of the children is to try to repeat back or contribute what they've been taught.
Let's call a spade a spade. This is people pleasing. How does forcing children for years and years to suppress their needs and wants impact their sense of dignity?
Sometimes adults act like they're listening when they're genuinely not listening, just trying to be polite. And it seems like all that effort of speaking it was just useless because they don't even really care.
Sometimes children will be consulted or engaged, but then nothing will come of it. And every time that happens, something dies a little bit. The children's belief that the system that they're part of will listen to them and cares about their voice. In a way, it would be better almost not to be consulted at all than to be mock consulted and then ignored.
Children is sometimes a derogatory term. When a boss reprimands the team saying, "Why are you behaving like children?" You're implying that children are people who misbehave. If we were to tell men, why are you gossiping like women? That implies women are gossipers.
Whether we experience something as an indignity or not depends on our frame of reference. Especially with children, when they see other children around them being treated the same way, they may accept it as normal, even if they don't really like how they're being treated. One way to sort of test those standards is to see how would this sound like if it was said to an adult. So it's considered fairly normal to tell a child, you can't watch TV unless you finish arranging your room. But if I were to tell my wife, you can't watch TV until you finish arranging the house, that would be an abusive relationship. So why is it not considered an abusive relationship when we say exactly that same thing to somebody who's actually perhaps even less capable of the executive functioning skills required to do that task?
Our invitation to you in the lead up to the Dignity Conference is to reflect on two questions. First question, when you were a child, what were the experiences where you felt your dignity was violated, even if you accepted it as normal then? Second question, what are the ways in which you may be violating the dignity of the children in your life? This could be your own children or any other children you interact with.
These two questions are deeply related. I promise to come back to corporal punishment at the end of the video, and I'll use that as an example of how the questions are related. Imagine I am a child, and in an otherwise loving household, I am fed, I am clothed, I receive health care, I receive affection, but my parents also hit me. Now, how do I make sense of this? Like, either I have to think that my parents are mistaken, and for a child this is almost impossible because parents are like gods, or I have to accept the narrative that is told to me, which is that this is for your own good. And then I somehow cope with my pain of being hurt by somebody who cares for me by internalizing that this is for my own good. And then I carry this attitude towards adulthood, and I think it is okay then to hurt children who I have power over for their own good, because I have not healed from the trauma that I experienced. That healing was never offered to me. I was never supported with it. So it's natural that this becomes intergenerational trauma and passes on to the next generation and the next generation. So part of our intention behind offering this session is that the reflections that come about could help end some of these cycles of trauma.
Tous les humains ont été des enfants, et pourtant l'une des choses les plus difficiles pour les adultes, c'est d'avoir de l'empathie pour les enfants.